Muy buenas tardes, tengan todos. Hola, mi nombre es Axel Barceló y continuamos aquí con las sesiones de estante por vía remota. El día de hoy tenemos un invitado muy, muy especial. Siempre tenemos muy buenos invitados, pero la verdad me da mucho gusto este invitado en particular porque toca un género del cual casi no hablamos en mi programa, lo cual es una pena porque es un género realmente muy, 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 muy interesante. We're going to be speaking in English because I think that's the best way to communicate. And I am sorry for people who don't, for our Spanish-speaking audience, because I have a very special guest today. It's, let me see if I say it correctly, Julien Descamps or Descamps. You're from Switzerland, right?
I'm from the United
Ah,
States,
you're
and
from the United.
my partner Dave is from Switzerland.
Oh, so you are the American part of the
I'm the
duo.
American part, and my partner is from Zurich. Yeah.
Where are you right now, by the way?
San Diego,
Oh,
California.
awesome. I really, really like San Diego. I haven't been there in a long time, but I have very close friends there, and they've always been very, very nice to me. So it's nice to see that you're. How's the weather, by the way? Is it true that it never rains in Southern California and everything?
Yeah, that's about 99% accurate.
Awesome. Okay, so we are here to talk about. First of all, I want to congratulate you because I just found out that just a few days ago you just hit #1 in the Beatport
Yeah.
chart for Psy Trance for your new single Move. So congratulations. What number of single is this?
Oh, we've had quite a few. Um, I'm not sure the exact number, but I think we've probably done between 11 to 13 at this point, maybe. Yeah.
Does it still surprise you when something hits this big? You go like, ah, or do you go like, oh, I knew it, and no, it was a great, great record.
Uh, of course, it always surprises us. It just means that the fans are loving it, and for us, that's the greatest gift in the world. We never go into something thinking, "Oh, it's gonna be like this," or "It's got to be like that." I think we do our job. We create the music, and then we give it to the world, and then the world is the judge. Uh, and they'll let us know if they like it, and they'll also let us know if they don't like it. So, we take it both ways, and but we don't really have any expectations when it comes to uh, it's got to be big or this or that. So, yeah.
I mean, the music you make, it's not just music, right? It fits. It has a natural habitat, which is like the rave. Lots of people with their hands in the air and just getting really into the music. However, right now, those circumstances are not as much as available as they used to be. So how have you adapted to this new reality of people probably listening to their music in their living rooms or maybe jumping and dancing on their own? Have you make any adjustments?
Yeah, so we actually have the largest YouTube channel in the world for the type of music that we do. We have a little over 960,000 subscribers now, growing at about 20,000 subscribers per month. It's called Brutish Heavy Music, for those that are interested, on YouTube. And so we've just been doing live streams every couple of months, also giving that platform for our friends to do guest mixes once we do live streams. It's not the same as
But
being able to share the energy with people and out in the real world, I guess. But it's still very therapeutic, both for us and for those that tune in, because people need music and they need an escape. And pandemic or not, you still have a responsibility to the fans, and you have to make sure that they're taken care of. So we try to do our best to bring them as much music as we can. And usually we release songs from other artists there every couple of days. So they're always getting fresh content, which, if you read some of their comments, really helps them get through maybe some of the more depressing times that people have been living through with the pandemic. So it's yeah, that's the alternative.
so the label and the channel are the same, are part of a larger project, or how do they complement each other?
Great question. So we started the label, the British Heavy music label, not too long ago, uh, for lesser known artists, right? Because we have such a big platform on YouTube that so many people send us music. We thought, okay, let's start a label because we have the content for it. Uh, we don't personally release there for ourselves. We release on Alteza Records, which is the best Psy Trance label slash EDM crossover label in the world, in our opinion. It's the label of Vinivici, which are the number 24 DJs in the world. Um, but not everybody has the opportunity or the privilege to release on big labels, right? Especially newer artists that are kind of starting out, that really need an outlet to get their music heard. So this is why we created the music label for British Heavy Music. And we have fantastic artists that release with us, like Middle D, Bass Factor, Phased, that are, you know, starting to get a little bit more well known, but don't necessarily have the attention yet of the bigger labels. So we try to do our part and provide them the platform to reward them for their efforts and kind of introduce them to the community.
So then they don't sign something like an exclusivity contract that now they are going to release music on your label. It's more of a by track decision.
Yeah, it depends on the artist and it depends on the commitment that they want to give to the label. Just like anything, you know, if you have somebody that's very motivated, that really loves the label, that wants to give more to that label, then that artist is going to get uh, more attention from us, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, we don't go into it saying it needs to be like this. Uh, we tried to create a label that didn't have all of some of the obstacles that we had to face kind of coming up, right? So it's very easy. It's very chill. We believe that if they like how we treat them, they're going to pay us back with music. And if we see that they're really pushing the label, then we're going to want to work more together. There's no point in trying to lock somebody in and say, now I got you, like that kills the creative process, that makes people feel pressure, and music should be free. So that's kind of how we run that label. It's very easy.
I am a special fan of these kind of labels that focus on new artists or new tracks, because commonly they have this freshness of like daring new things. Because I mean, I don't want to badmouth anybody, but a lot of artists can sometimes just like, have a bag of tricks that, they're gonna make this kind of drop, that they like this kind of rhythms. But I like when artists are young, I think they dare more than more established as artists. Have you found this in the artists that you? Uh,
Yeah, they're finding their sound.
mhm.
They're finding their identity of what it is that they want to do, and it makes for uh, very interesting things that we receive. Obviously, it needs to fit the vision of the type of music that we play on the channel. So we can't just accept anybody, and there still needs to maintain a level of quality that's necessary, I guess, to get a proper release. But the artists that we work with are 100% professional. I would even say some of the most talented that we've ever met, especially at such a young age. So since we have a little bit of marketing backgrounds and things like that, and they're more just focused on music, then that's kind of our gift to them, to give them to allow them to see that it is possible to live out your dream, right?
So you
Because
have rejected tracks that are great but not fit the label, and you have had to say no.
um, we've had to say no to some music, but mostly because it just didn't fit what it is that we release. right? So we can't release house music on a psychedelic trance label, right? And some people just see how big the channel is, so they'll just send us anything anyway, right? And you know, we tell them, and we're always very respectful of everybody that sends music to us. So we see it as a big privilege that people think of us, right? Because they want something. And one of the things when Dave and I were starting out that kind of can make you get down on yourself a little bit is when you send something to someone and you don't hear anything back ever. So you don't know why it was, you don't even know if they heard it, right? Uh, and if you're an up and coming producer, that can be a little bit hard to deal with, right? It's like, oh, nobody's paying attention to my music, this or that. So even if it's not for us right now, we always write them back and we say, hey, you know, thank you so much for thinking of us. You know, unfortunately, it's not a good fit for us right now, but please keep us in mind in the future. And here's the reasons why it wasn't a good fit for us right now, right? Because, yeah.
I used to have a friend who had run this label. I don't know if you probably haven't heard it. That was called something like uh, Good Lovers Finish Last or something like that. You know, this very, very punk, emo, downer label. I used to always used to complain that he would sometimes receive like gospel music or really uplifting poppy music. I was like, oh, come on, these people are just sending anywhere.
Yeah.
Have you found something like that? Something like you
Yeah.
actually gets you upset that they have
Not upset,
Mhm.
because we understand where they're coming from, right? I think when you're a producer, especially when you're young, like our channel has a very young audience. I think the majority of our channel is 17 to 24, right? So very young. But we don't get upset. I mean, the way that we look at it is, hey, these guys, they're trying, you know, and there's something to be said for that. Even more so because I know Dave and me both, when we were first starting producing, we wouldn't even release anything. So the fact that these kids are actually putting themselves out there and sending us something that might not fit or might not be perfect, uh, it's good training for them, right? Especially if you want to go to a bigger label. Uh, you know, for us, we can kind of help them out and tell them a little bit of why it's not like that. But also, it's good for people to get rejected as well, because if everything comes too easy, it's not going to force you to get better, right? And when you are dealing with bigger labels, you're not going to hear back, right? And you're dealing at a level where there's tens of thousands, if not millions of other producers that are trying to get on there. So it's almost like practice to then step up to, you know, a tier one label, where it's highly competitive. And uh, yeah, I'll leave it at that, right? It's highly competitive.
So have you ever felt like proud parents when you see one of those artists that has released with you then be able to release something in a much bigger label?
100%. For us, it's, even though the label is very new, right? Our goal is to get eyeballs on them. And we understand that there's benefits that come with releasing on bigger labels that we can't offer. We can perhaps offer you views and we can offer you a specific audience, but it kind of goes back to what I said. I don't know if that was with you or maybe with somebody else. Each label has a different audience, right? So if we're able to get them exposure over here and they can come to us and say, hey, you know, I'd really like to release over here, we're all for it. You know, it's good exposure for everyone because they come from our label, then other people start hearing about our label, they get more exposure, and it's just a natural growth pattern that happens. And we're really just here to support.
The
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, well, the scene in particular, for sure. But there's some very meritable producers out there that might not necessarily have the reach or the skills to be able to market themselves properly, but that deserve to be on, you know, major labels. And I have plenty of examples I can give off the top of my head. And if we can use our network to be able to kind of bump them up to that next level, and we can act as a vessel to kind of take them by the hand and give them that next opportunity. They're never going to forget us. They're always
Of
going to
course.
be loyal to you because you helped them in their career. And this is something that we didn't really have, Dave and I. So that's what we try to give back, is treat others the way you would have liked to be treated. I think feels a little bit lost these days. And we try to bring that back for the new artists that truly deserve it.
On the one hand, I am not that surprised, because at least the reputation that the trance scene has, especially Psy Trance, is a very community-oriented scene, right? So that's why I don't find it that surprising that you are not competitive with younger generations. But at the same time, I'm also happy, right, that this is not just a myth, that it is true, that there is a community. So I want to turn now to the channel, because maybe have you do you think you know why you have become so successful? Do you think there is a key to what you did right that has brought and kept all these people together in your channel?
Yeah, great question, by the way. I think the channel itself became successful based off of our partner that runs the channel. I think because there's three of us that run the channel, uh, and he was truly the essence of what made that work. Uh, and that's exactly who our audience is. Very selfless person, always loves to give back, comes from, you know, a very poor community in Brazil, um, and has had to work really hard for everything that he's had, and just absolutely loves music, right? Uh, and what he figured out at a very early stage is that if you can get people from that listen to very big pop songs, right, very mainstream commercial things, um, it's going to get eyeballs, right? Because people are naturally searching for that. So when he started it, he would look for dance remixes of very famous pop tracks. So that would get the eyeballs, and that would bring people from the mainstream into a remix of the mainstream into psychedelic trance and more dance music oriented. And we feel that that's been the interacting with the channel as well. You'll see a lot of channels that, you know, if people comment on it, the comment just sits there, right? And they don't care. We interact with everybody on the channel. We even have private WhatsApp groups of people that are subscribed to the channel that they can have discussions amongst themselves, you know, and we're very involved in with everybody that's in there. So it's kind of grown to be a community of people. It's almost like its own little social network within a social network. Um, and we try to give them everything that we can that they like and that they want. But most of the credit has to go to our third partner, Yan, because that channel is directly an extension of himself. We came in once the channel was already a little bit started. So we didn't start the channel ourselves. We came on as partners when the channel was at about 400,000 subscribers. And since we've kind of come on, we've leveraged our network to grow it to where it is now to 960,000, going on to 1 million, which will happen within the next month and a half.
Wow, congratulations. But then you just a few minutes ago you said like you were like being very modest about what you can offer your artist, but you're giving an exposure to like about 1 million people just by being released on your label because of the interaction between the channel and the label. So where else is like what would be the next step? What is the next challenge for this interaction between label and channel?
The next step would be to have our own stage at a festival somewhere. That's the next step for us. And doing joint ventures and partnerships with very big music festivals, which we're in the process of doing for the 1 million stream. We're teaming up with one of the largest music festivals in Brazil.
Can you tell us which one, or until it is official, you cannot say anything?
Uh, we can't say it yet, but if you follow through on the 1 million stream, you'll see it, and it's going to be very big. But that's really the next step for us. We want to be, in terms of like our brand positioning, a centralized hub, like an all-in-one. So you have the media, and then you have the festivals, and then you have the label for the up-and-coming artists. And that's kind of the platform that we want to give to people. I think one of the core things that also attracts people to us is it's all about feeling, right? And sometimes in the music industry, you can find big egos that are not necessarily beneficial to anyone. The way that we look at it is everybody's equal. You know, no one is more special than anybody else. You know, just because somebody's starting out doesn't necessarily mean that they don't deserve the respect that a bigger artist might get. And we're trying to balance that scale. And that's another thing that we look for when signing artists is attitude and how they are towards other people when no one's looking, kind of a thing.
But
And
how do you find out if they are sending you just a track? How do you know who is the person behind that track?
we communicate with them,
Mm-hmm.
and we communicate with people that, you know, might know them, just to get a little bit of feedback. And a big thing is them asking what they can do for us. You know, if you get somebody that kind of approaches you like that to start with,
Mm-hmm.
you know that their mind's in the right place. Because you do also get people that say, I demand you release this on your channel and stuff like that. Well, that's not a good recipe for success, right? If that's your first step of approach when approaching somebody, it's probably not going to be a good fit. But if you come at it from a point of service, just as we do to them, then that already lets us know this person's thinking in the right way. It should be a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not just what can the label do for me, right? It's how can I make sure that the label is equally as successful as they're going to make me. That's key.
But that is talking about the artists, talking about the musicians. But for the label to work, you need all this other work. I don't know, from graphic designers to people just pushing paper. Where do you get these people? Have you also been contracted people saying like, oh, you know, I want to, I don't know, design the cover for any of your singles just because I want to work with you, because I'm part of the community. Maybe I want to be a volunteer or something like that.
So great question. Our graphic designer is also another Psy Trance producer who's just incredibly talented. I think one of the most amazing things that you can find within our community is it's full of artistic people, right? Whether it's music or whether it's art or set design, there's always somebody that's there that has those kind of skill sets. And the beauty of our channel is that it has such a wide reach that we're already connected to people who want to be a part of the brand itself. For our graphic design, we use one designer out of Brazil who lives and breathes Psy Trance. Like he understands it. And I think that's another kind of ingredient to success, is being authentic. So if you can surround yourself with people that are authentic to that specific vision, or who understand the culture and everything else, it's going to make the whole thing more successful. Does that make sense?
Of course, yes, because I mean, you need to be in it. You're not going to be in it for the money, for sure, right? So you have to. No, that's not going to happen. But you said that you also have a background in marketing.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And how does that? So how does that connect with your role in the label? Is because of your background in marketing that you play a special role in the label that can better take advantage of your skills there, or everybody does whatever is necessary?
No, I think everybody has a very set role. within our company. You know, there are things that I am good at. There are things that Dave is good at, and there are things that our third partner Yan is good at. And we don't step on anybody's toes. Everybody knows our strengths, and we trust each other to be able to deliver on our own skill sets.
And which are those? For example, what are you responsible for?
So Dave and I are really responsible for making sure that it keeps growing, you know, and giving, I guess, giving more eyes to our channel through our exposure that we're able to get other places. That's really our key responsibilities, so to speak. In terms of the marketing, I focus on making sure that like our Spotify grows. I make sure that we have the right people in place to run advertisements for us if we need to advertise. Yeah, Yan is responsible for making sure that all of the releases go out on time. He's responsible for artist interactions. You know, Dave is responsible for making sure that the releases are good and ready for release. So we each have our own little role into making sure that, you know, we're doing what we're supposed to.
Oh, congratulations. I want to go now to Alchemist, now that we have talked so much about the label, even though I could talk about the label forever. I think it's amazing that people still can do so much good work in an era where people have a million times said that labels have no place anymore now that everybody can, you know, upload anything anywhere. People say that, you know, it doesn't make sense to have labels. So maybe that would be my last question about the label. What role do labels can still play in artist development today, now that, on the other hand, it seems like everything could be done DIY?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I think it just depends on what the artist wants. You know, different artists want different things. Our goals are not necessarily going to be the same goals of somebody else. The benefit of going with a label, and again, you know, I think it's up to the person to pick the label, but the label should be there to support you in some of the things that you're not able to do yourself. Most artists are artists, and that's it, right? They're not marketers. They're artists. They love making music, right? And honestly, from our own point of view too, is if we could just do music and that's it, it would be fantastic. Sign us up, right? But that's not the world that we live in these days. These days, artists need to be able to do everything, right? So if you're going to go for a label, I would say some of the benefits are, let's say like ours, some of the benefits of that label is we can get you exposure that you won't be able to get on your own, right? You got a channel with almost 1 million people on it. Most artists do not have that, right? So you can pay with music. That's the trade. Hey, we want to come to your label. You're going to give me exposure that I'm not able to get anywhere else. That's a trade. That's a reason for going to a label. If all you want to do is make as much money as you can on a release, then by all means, self-release, right? If you know that you can do all of your marketing yourself, if you know you can get the reach yourself, or you can pay somebody as an advertising fee to do it for you, that's probably the best option for you. But most people don't want to do that. And then even for us, there are tremendous benefits from being on a label like Alteza. First of all, just the respect that you get from other artists from being on that type of platform, the network that you have access to that we couldn't have found without being on a label like that, the support that from different places in the world from being with such an amazing label, the support that you get from big artists, right? Us being on Alteza has allowed us to be seen by some of the biggest DJs in the world, or us being releasing on Armada has allowed us to add to our marketing resume in terms of being able to sell us to promoters, right? So there are advantages to being on record labels. You can't buy Armin van Buuren playing your track on a state of trance to however many people listen to that. That was earned. That was earned through many years of hard work and then releasing with his label, right? He is supporting the artists that are releasing on his label. So that's a massive benefit. Having Vinavici play our music at Tomorrowland or Ultra Music Taiwan because it's on their label, that gets our music heard by people that we wouldn't have had access to if we just said, hey, we want to do this ourselves, right? So those are the benefits of being on a label. And each label has its own benefit. It's just up to you to try to figure out what it is that you want. But I have friends, and Dave has friends that self-release. You know, for them, they want to make as much money as they can on the releases. They want 100% of the profits to go to them because that's just a source of income for them. And that's perfectly okay. You know, there's no right or wrong way of going about it. It's just really depends on what it is that you want as an artist for your own career. And then you can go out there and try to bring value to the label and they can help you.
This gives me a great segue into talking about Alchemist. So if it depends on what each band or artist wants, what is it that you want? What is that Alchemist want? Why does it even exist?
Yeah, so for us, Alchemist is truly built out of love, a love for music that has such a massive impact in our lives. And it allows us to give back memories that were given to us by other producers when we are kind of coming out. So I don't know if you can see our logo, but we have like the
Yes.
backwards triangle, right? And, you know, usually it's upside down and there's one person at the top. And for us, it's from many, there are one, right? So it's kind of reversed on itself. It's all about community. It's all about love. It's all about giving back. And that's truly been our mission. And in terms of our goals, our personal goals for Alchemist, to try to change as many lives as we can through our music. And that means, you know, being heavy on marketing and getting as many people to listen to what it is that we do as possible. And we think that that's very important. Other people might disagree, and that's okay. But for us, our goal is we want as many people in the world to be introduced to our music, love it or hate it. You can make that decision when it comes. But up until this point, you know, it's been a lot of love that has come our way. And you can hear it in our music. You know, it's a direct reflection of us and who we are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you cannot fake that kind of commitment, that kind of heart put in a track. But you were talking about how Psy Trance has meant so much in your lives in plural, and also in your life in person. So I would like to ask you about, do you remember the first time you encountered this kind of music? Do you have a special memory about the first time? Yeah. Can you share it with us?
For trance or for Psy Trance?
For Psy Trance.
Are a little different.
Yes.
For Psy Trance, yeah. So I was introduced personally to Psy Trance, I want to say in 2009 or 2010, somewhere around there, having come from trance at a very early age. And I just remember being taken to my first Psy Trance rave and thinking to myself, wow, now I'm free. I have all of these people around me that are just so pure, so, how can I even explain it? It was like, they were there for one thing. They were there for music, and that was it. And they could have the freedom of self-expression immediately. I saw it, you know, just through the way that they were dancing, through the way that they were dressed, through the way that they were communicating with others. There was a true sense of selflessness, compassion, and care within this community. And add on top of that high BPM music, which for us has always been very important because it allows us to actually dance. Uh, you felt at home, you know, and that was one of the things that was really missing, at least in my life personally at that time, when trance music, more mainstream trance, was going through such a radical transformation, going to lower BPMs. I didn't really connect with the music as much as I did before anymore. And music has always been so important that it's very important to find what it is that you like and have something that speaks to you. And I was very fortunate to have somebody introduce me to that world, which was at that really unknown. And I found that what I loved most about trance before this were the psychedelic elements that we found in Psy Trance. So, and I learned that about my musical taste once I got introduced to that type of music. So, and I think Dave would probably say the same. I can't speak for him when his first experience was with Psy Trance, but he does come from trance just like I did. And you know, I wish he was here with us right now because he could give his
Yeah, that was
answer.
being, I would have liked also.
But
when we
go
talk
ahead.
about now, when we talk about Psy Trance, it's so embedded in this culture, in these values, even in these ethics, that it's very hard to separate. But if you had to separate the music from the culture, would you think that the link is contingent? It just happened to be the music that these people that were listening to, that this kind of community, that bound this community together? Or do you think there's something more intrinsic about the psychedelic elements, about the energy, the euphoric sounds, the psychedelic elements, the fast speed, that makes it a good fit for this kind of community?
That's a great question. I mean, I can't really speak for other people's experiences. I can only speak for my own. But it's connected all around. Like there's a lot of energy within that music, and I think that's probably why it attracts such a unique set of individuals. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I wish I had a better answer.
So you were saying you were coming from more mainstream trance. Does that mean that you were already producing music? You were already making trance music, or you were still just listening?
No,
You
Dave
were
and I
already
both.
making.
Yeah, Dave and I both started, I think, in 2005. So that's when we really.
And
Go ahead.
so you were doing trance. So the first music you made was already trance. You didn't start with other rhythms before you found trance. That's
No.
what you wanted to play since the beginning.
Since starting producing, it was always trance, because that's the music that had such a significant impact in both of our lives. It was trance music. Yeah, it's a very personal style.
But
I mean, trance music
okay,
for
so
us
then,
is very personal. Yeah.
But can you explain how did it become so personal?
Yeah, 100%. Sure. Again, I wish Dave was here so he could speak from his end, but from my end is I was born in Europe. I was born in Belgium, so all of my family is still in Belgium, and I go back and I visit. So had older cousins, and they would introduce me to dance music. Starting in 1993 was really when I can have my first memory of being introduced to electronic dance music, which was something called Thunderdome, which is hardcore gabber.
Yeah.
Very hard style of music out of the Netherlands, which was very close to where
Belgium,
I would go back for summers. And yeah, and that's my first experience with dance music, and I loved it. And then I remember in 94, 95, 96, kind of it going through transition. So my first experience was the hardcore gabber, then it was the Euro dance, like the Two Unlimiteds, the Master Boys, which had very much, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So yeah, that was the Euro dance movement that had a lot of trance elements to it. And then in 1996, I very remember, like specifically where I was sitting at 11 years old, seeing MTV UK, because they only had one MTV in Europe at that time, hearing Robert Miles' Children come on, and it completely just mesmerized me. I was like, wow, this is melodic. It has movement. It moves. It's a higher BPM tempo. And I fell in love. And then at that time, you had in Belgium specifically, Bonsai Trance and Progressive with the Cherry Moons, which was a club out of Lokeren in Belgium that started coming out with this, what's now called retro house in Belgium, but really was the infancy of classic trance that would lead into 97, 98, 99, where you'd have the golden years and you'd get the Paul Oakenfolds and the Tiestos that would start coming and really solidifying it as a genre. But all of those memories of me being a child are all tied into when I would go back for summer vacations and New Year's, and having my cousins who were older than me, early teenagers at that time, being like, hey, listen to this. Hey, listen to this. So all of those memories that I have are linked with that type of music for me personally. So I always had that sense of, hey, when I listen to this, I feel connected to my family. I know that might sound weird, but that was my connection to my family that I was taken from, uh, away from them. It would always link me back to them through trance, and that's why it's so meaningful. So all of those emotions, and even still today, uh, when I said, "Hey, I'd like to start producing music," uh, there was only one answer. It was trance, because that's all I was listening to, and I was just
even in, even
curious.
even when you're living in, yeah, but that's by this time you were already living in the US, and even then you were
Yeah.
only
I've
listening to
been living in
trance.
the U.S. since 1990. That's when I moved here.
And even
Yeah.
during all this time you were listening to trance, but wasn't that hard for you in an environment where it is not that common to listen to trance?
Oh yeah. I still remember being in junior high school getting made fun of in like 1997 because I was listening to trance, really, and or dance music, and they'd call me like a techno tard, or they'd make fun of me like, because everybody else was
Yes.
listening to Eminem, and they were listening to hip hop, and they were listening to all this stuff, and I was the weird outcast kid listening to my dance music, or my Euro dance, and before it was really accepted here in the United States. So yeah, I got teased a lot for it, but I didn't care. It made me happy. So yeah. And now look who's laughing. All these guys are all listening to dance music. We were ahead of the curve. So
Were you first a DJ before producing, or did you start by producing?
no, uh, I learned how to DJ starting in 2007. I want to say that's really when I started to learn how to DJ, through old roommates that I had. So I'd already been producing for a year or two at that point, maybe a year and a half, before I actually started to learn how to DJ.
How
And
long
we
did
learned
it
on
take?
vinyl.
Oh, you learned on vinyl. Awesome.
Mhm.
How long after you started producing did you realize that yes, you could do it? That yes, this is something that would not be a hobby. This is something that you could become.
Mm, a long time. Even still today, you never know. Uh, Really, I would say when Dave and I connected together, because there was a point in time where I had personally stopped for like a couple of years, just because I didn't feel like it was really paying in dividends or something like that. And you know, when Dave and I met, I think we just found that inspiration within each other again to give it another shot. It's like, hey, you know, let's try again, right? Nobody ever made it by quitting. Um, but and then for me personally, it was always more fun to produce with a friend. There was that friend element of being able to create something together and share it together and share those experiences together was much more meaningful for me than just doing it alone, so to speak. And that's something I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do it alone,
So
but I
you,
needed the right person.
so you had already been working with other people in before you
Mhm.
started working with David.
I worked with one other person for a few years, and then it kind of just tapered off. Um,
But
so
so what was special about working with David? What can you do with him
his
that you
talent,
don't think you could do? Hmm?
his talent, and his love for the music. I mean, Dave is one of the most talented music producers I've ever met in my life, and that anybody will ever meet in their life. He's able to take ideas and turn them into magic. You know, he is. Yeah, we're very lucky to have found each other.
If I were to ask the same to him, what do you think he would say is that you bring to the band that he could not do alone?
Mm, I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
Yeah, I would really like to ask because, but you also work with other people. I mean, you have a guest vocalist, you have other guest musicians. How do you decide whom to invite to join you in this musical ventures?
I'm texting him right now,
Yeah, that's
telling him to join. Yeah. Sorry, say your question again. It was something about working with other people. I'm
yes,
sorry, I didn't
exactly.
even
How
hear.
do because it's you don't a lot of your releases are not just the two of you. You have other people involved, vocalists and things like that. How do you decide who to work with?
Inspiration. Do we like their music? It's really that simple. Do we like their music? And in terms of vocalists, uh, does do their vocals and how they sing, do they hit and communicate with us? Do we feel very difficult to find at times? But when you do find it, it creates something very, very special. For us, the music is always created based off of feeling, right? Like, yeah, we might have a way of working together and building out a track, but the part of the track is not finalized until we can feel it in our hearts. It's more than just listening. Does it speak to you in your heart? Do you feel it within your gut, within your stomach? And if you listen to the track and if it's able to create some sort of a sensation within you, then we know that it's time to move on to the next part.
So it is not hard for you to finish the track. It's not that you want to go back to some of your tracks and say like, oh, maybe I should have not have this break here. Like, no, you are very happy and you know that they are done. They where they are.
Yeah, they're done. Once we put our final stamp on it, I mean, we might go and revise a bass line, you know, a year or two later just to like update it a little bit. But in terms of the structure of the track and how it's done, it's finished. Plus, you know, each of these tracks represent a moment in time, right? And we like to look to the future. So this served its purpose for this part of time. Now it's time to keep moving forward. If you keep going back to things, you don't develop as an artist, you know, because you have to be able to grow as an artist. You have to be able to, you know, change, adapt, and follow your own journey.
Something else I really like about Psy Trance is that it's actually very plastic genre. You can actually incorporate elements from a lot of music traditions, and this is something you also do, right? You have elements from other cultures, and so how did you decide this? How do you say, okay, here I want to have something from India, but here maybe something harder? How does all the different elements come together? Is it something that is conscious? You say like, hey, you tell David, I want to do now something for early in the set, or no, now I want to do something to like
So
really put your hands. Mhm.
typically our tracks follow themes. So if you're asking about India, like we have two tracks that revolve around India that we've done. We've done Deva and we've done Rudra. Uh, and before writing those tracks, we knew we want to do an Indian theme or we want to do an Indian mantra. So it's very intentional in terms of the direction of how we were going to start it. With the new track that just came out, which is a collaboration, we've incorporated elements of house. The vocalist that we have is a tremendous house vocalist out of London, UK, and we also incorporated elements of Detroit techno into the track, and we wouldn't have necessarily gone this direction if it wasn't for Dima having such a different sound than us, uh, and seeing what we could create from having two completely different styles of psytrance mixed into one, and thinking to ourselves, how do we bring this to the masses? How do we incorporate this to where it's mainstream enough that we can attract people from all different genres and have a little bit of something for everyone? Since house music has always been so big, uh, incorporating house and future house into it made sense. Since Detroit techno is so pure and so, it is what it is, how can we incorporate some of that into that and try to bring some of the techno people in to where there's something in there for them? Our goal is truly to kind of position ourselves as a safe zone that everybody from every genre can find a little bit of something that they like within our music.
Actually, that was also was going to be part of my question, my next question, which is that how do you keep innovating in a genre that has such a long history, who has already moved in so many directions? How do you find new musical challenges? But I think you have partially give us an answer. But
Yeah.
even if I ask you even more straightforward, how do you keep challenging
But
yourself?
we try different things. We try to find inspiration from different genres that aren't necessarily mainstream psytrance. And then not everything we do works, right? And I guess that's another
Like
reason
what kind of
why,
things haven't worked?
well, just ideas, like we tried to do, let me think, like bagpipes one time, right? Just like as a
Awesome.
theme from, right? And we ended up making it work on one track, but we weren't able to do it again on a different track, right? So it's all trial and error. We even have a track called Folk the System where we did an accordion, and that worked really well, right? It really is a track that everybody loved, right? But up until that point, I'm pretty sure we were the first people to incorporate an accordion into a dance music track. We'd never heard it up until that point. And then when people heard it, they're like, wow, this is so different. This is crazy. Like, cool. It was part of what makes us different, I guess. We're willing to take the risk.
Well, we thank you for that, actually. And also, I want to thank you for your time. I'm sorry our time is running out, but you have been very, very generous with your time and with your answers. Actually, I have learned a lot. And I would like to ask you whether you think there is something that is still left behind that you would left unsaid that you think you want our audience to hear.
Sure. To your audience, we thank you, number one, for listening to the interview and giving your time to learn about us. For Dave and myself, that means a lot. So we thank you for that. And then, you know, stay strong. You have a lot of artists out there. They're still thinking about how to bring music to you. And we will never give up on you. And hopefully, if we're able to do it, we would love to meet all of you in Mexico someday, and yourself included, for being so kind and gracious to interview us. It means a lot to us. And you know, nothing would make us happier than to meet someday in real life and be able to share our music live.
Oh, of course, I would really like to hear you live. Well, thank you so much, Julien, for all this time. My name is Axel Barceló. Remember, this is Estante de Grita Radio. This is one of our remote interview sessions, but remember to stay tuned. Esto es para Grita Radio y nosotros nos escuchamos más tarde. Muchas gracias.